Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff. We're from New Life Church in Hammond, Indiana. So I've got other churches on my brain, I guess, but we're from Hammond, Indiana. This is New Life in our house church, and we hope that you, as you listen, that you'll be blessed, and that something that has been said today will be of help to you too as well. We're going to go into the book of Job. I'm going to kind of do like a whirlwind tour of Job. Basically, I'm going to concentrate on 5 people. Job, actually 6 people. His 3 friends, actually he's got 4 friends, and then God. Okay. We got 4 friends that are giving Job advice. If you know anything about Job, this is the book this is the ultimate book, I think you call in suffering. If you want to know anything about suffering, go to Job. Okay? Everybody else in the Bible, but Job was the first one. They actually say Job was the first book of the Bible. We're not really for sure, because I look at different chronological books, and they all got chronology a little bit different. But by any stretch of the imagination, excuse my coughing, Job is one of the oldest books, of course, and some say it was even during the time of the patriarchs, between like Adam, Abraham, and all of them. Not Adam. Adam was the very first, but patriarchs, be Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and that he was there somewhere around that time. Some say earlier. So, but I'm not here to discuss genealogy or timelines or anything of that nature. I want to talk about something that we all have a problem with. It's called suffering. I'm going through some things. There's somebody in every one of this congregation. There's people going through things. Some suffering is in everybody's life. Even if you're not a Christian, there's suffering in your life. But being a Christian should be, dare I say, a little bit easier to suffer when you have Jesus Christ in your heart as your Savior and your Lord. The world may not see that as easy, but it's hard to see the heart of a Christian a lot of times unless they bring it out and they act the right way during their suffering times. And some people, once you get over one trial, there's another trial. Some people say, well, God, you got through that trial, well, God's going to give you another trial, There's different excuses and different reasons, and Job's friends in the book of Job gave him different reasons for why he was suffering. Now, you got to remember, even the best human being that can give you the best answers isn't God's answer a lot of times. We see in part and we know in part, but we don't know the whole thing. A lot of times when a friend of mine is suffering, I can give my opinion, or there may be times that God even tells me why that person's suffering, but I still don't know the whole story. We assume a lot of things in our lives. We expect certain things when we suffer, but God's answers are not our answers most of the time, unless you're really in tune with God. Out of Job's 4 friends, we usually concentrate on 3 of them, but he had 4 friends. The last friend seemed to be the closest, but he wasn't close enough. They were all good friends of Job. Job chapter 1 verse 1 says that Job was a righteous and upright man and avoided evil. If you go into King James, it's skewed. But he ran away from evil. He even was so concerned with evil that he gave offerings for his sons and his daughters. In case they did do something wrong and stupid and against God, he offered sacrifices to them. That's how much that he hated evil. So the devil gets to come down and he says, hey, a lot of people are down here, but I really want to concentrate on Job. And God says, go ahead. Consider my servant Job. He was a righteous and upright and hated evil kind of man. Well, the devil says, well, I got a plan. I want to see what he does when you take things away from him. And you would think God would say no, because it's from the devil. And God said, go ahead. I would be saying, God, why would you let the devil do this thing? You just knocked him out of heaven, and you put him down here on this earth, and you brought a third of his angels down here. Why would you want the devil to make me suffer? That's a question that Job asked. Did he get an answer? We'll see. So God says, take all of his possessions. So all of his possessions, his cattle, his sheep, his goats, his houses, his barns, his money, all of it was gone. This person came. There was a war. There was invaders. There was this. There was that. There was all kinds of things that came after him and took everything that he had. Well, and Job stood the test. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. So the devil says, hey, guess what? Let's go a step further. Let's take his family. So he took his 7 sons and his 3 daughters, and they died in a whirlwind or a hurricane or however you want to say it. It was done instantly. And Job stood the test of time. Job stood the test that God allowed Satan to do. Why? Maybe we'll find out. So the devil comes back again to God the 3rd time and says, hey, a man would give up everything to have his health. He gave up his possessions. He really didn't give them up. They were gone. His family was gone. Some would say, why didn't they take Job's wife? She was the one to say, curse God and die. Oh, there's some reason for it. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. Satan says, go ahead. Can I take his health? God says, go ahead. He takes his health. He's sitting on a pile of ashes. If you've ever been at a garbage place and you've seen it burn, I remember when we used to live down in Kentucky and stuff, we could burn our trash down there. And you get a good pile going. You know, and you watch it burn, and if you're a pyromaniac, you love that stuff. But after a while, it all turns to ashes, and it gets cooled down, and there's stuff left over, like broken glass, and broken this and broken that. Here's Job sitting in a burnt trash pile, taking a piece of glass or a piece of clay pot, scraping sores on his arms and his legs and his chest and his back and wherever else there. He's sitting there, poor, lonely, and sick. What does Job do? Well, if you read the book of Job, it's 42 chapters long. All the answers don't come in all those chapters until close to the very end. He had 3 friends. Bildad the Shuhite. He had Eliphaz the Temanite. Zophar the Naamanite. I'm probably saying it wrong. And Elihu the Buzite. He had 3 friends. 4 friends. They all had an answer. When you go through something, let me ask you this. Do you like it when somebody tells you why you think you're suffering? Do you? Sometimes yes. Sometimes no. I think the big thing is if they're being judgmental or not. Are these friends being judgmental? The smartest thing they did was at the very beginning, these 4 friends. They kept silent. They shut up for 7 days. They sat with Job in the ash heap with them. I say that's a pretty good friend, don't you think? Somebody's sitting there and they don't have to suffer with you, but they're there. Most people nowadays, if you're suffering, they run. Well, you know, this person's got problems, and I don't need to be around that. I got my own life to live. So I know we give these guys a lot of bad credit, but there's a little bit of good credit too here. They shut up for 7 days. I don't know anybody that can't talk for 7 days. I know some people who can't talk for 30 seconds. You know, they have to talk all the time. They did the thing that we should do the most of. Just be there. Just be there. Job's scraping his sores off, and he's, you know, spending time with God. Job asks some questions, and he talks. Then his friends start in on him after 7 days. Eliphaz, the Temanite, was talking to Job in chapter 4, chapter 5, and chapter 15. And this is what he came up with. He says, Job is suffering because he has sinned. Now, granted, we suffer a lot because of our own volunteer sin. Okay. What advice did he give Job? Go to God and confess your sins to him. Well, that would be a good thing, because the Bible tells us to examine ourselves first, doesn't it? If you look in the New Testament, to examine ourselves and make sure our hearts are right and our minds are right and our bodies are right. What was Job's response? Stop assuming my guilt, for I am righteous. Why did he say that? Because God said that. God said, I am right, that he was righteous and he hated evil. So that fallacy went out the window. I mean, if they knew Job before all this there, they should have known that he was righteous. They should have known. Maybe they weren't looking deep enough into his heart. They were kind of doing the shallow, well, maybe you sinned against God. Maybe you did something that you weren't supposed to do. I'm telling you this. You would have to do an awful heck of a lot of sinning, I think, for God to even. And on a continual basis, habitual basis of sinning, for God to punish you for your sin. Because God is not in the business of making you suffer and punishing you to suffer at first. His job is to be a gentleman and to gently woo you back to him. And then there's steps and there's seasons and things like that before God will really get down on your case. You see that throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. A lot of people blame the Old Testament God for being a racist or a hypocrite or a bigot or a mean God or everything like that. But they don't read the whole Bible in context. They just look at God killed the Philistines. God killed the Amorites. God killed this. But did they ever really look at the whole Bible and say, hey, God spent 400 years before he destroyed Nineveh? How many years did it take before God actually destroyed the earth with a flood? I don't think it was 1 year. Because the population had to grow. People became evil in the sight of God. And there's a threshold that God had. God is not in the business of punishing people at first. He never is. I look at God, a lot of people look at God like they look at their fathers or their mothers. Well, did you have a mean father? Did you have a mean mother? Or did you have a lenient mother and a lenient father? And a lot of people look at God in the way they were raised instead of the way the Bible says it ought to be. Was it because Job sinned? No. Job chapter 1, verse 1, verse 8, chapter 2, verse 3. An upright man, holy and just, hated evil. Well, Eliphaz's excuses out the door. So what else could it be for Job's suffering. Why else would Job? Well, guess who gets to come in? Bildad the Shuhite. I don't know if he was as tall as a shoe or not. But he's Bildad the Shuhite. In Job chapter 8 and 18 and 25, Bildad talks. You often find a lot of people that love to talk, don't they? They like to express their opinions about you or about your situation. And I have to be honest with you. I have a family member, my son, that I got a lot of opinions right now. They're not good opinions, I'll be honest with you. But I can't go with my opinions. I have to go with, one, what I do see. Number two, that God loves him just as much as he loves me. And God loves you just as much as he loves him. So it's not the degree of love that God has for us. Bildad the Shuhite says they sat. He said Job won't admit to his sin, so he's still suffering. Again, that flies out of the face of God. Because if Eliphaz the Temanite says, well, you're sinning, that's why you're suffering. Bildad says, well, you have sinned, and you haven't repented from it, so therefore, you're suffering. How long, he tells Job, how long will you go on like this? So now, they've gone from you're sinning to you have sinned to, and it's getting real close to saying, Job, you're awfully self-righteous. You're a goody two-shoes. You mean you're just too righteous? Do you ever heard anybody say that to you? I haven't. But I have been told that I'm too this or I'm too that. I'm too honest. I'm too this. I'm too that. I've been told those things. But Bildad says, how long are you going to be self-righteous? Like Job's a Pharisee or a Sadducee from the New Testament. How long will you be? And this can be true to some people. That I can't sin. Sinless perfection that some of these religions and denominations talk about. Once I get saved, I'm no longer sinful anymore, no matter what I do, so I can do anything I want to do.
I wish that were true, but it's not.
Well, yeah, it's not true. There is no such thing as sinless perfection on this earth. The only perfection you're going to get is when you get to heaven.
That's right.
So they're getting to that threshold more and more. Well, you're just being self-righteous. You really are a sinner, and you really... But you know what? None of them named a sin. I mean, he didn't leave his wife. I mean, if anybody could have left his wife, he had 10 kids. You know, sometimes your kids could get on your nerves, right? I have one and I love him to death, but he can get on my nerves. 10 kids? And a wife that says, curse God and die? My been justified by sinning? No, not really. But that's kind of what they're thinking. How long will you go on like this? Job's response is this. I will say to God, tell me, why are you doing it? Job asks a question. What does Jesus do a lot of times? He answers a question with what? A question. Job's asking a question. Well, God rebukes Job. He's not disciplining him. Don't get it wrong. He's not disciplining Job. He's saying, sorry, brother, you got this particular part wrong. I know your friends, they're also wrong. But you're asking questions. And God is not upset yet. God is still being merciful and loving and kind. And he does all, even when he's disciplining you. And people would probably get wrong, be mad at me for saying this, but even as he sends you to hell, he's being merciful. You send yourself to hell for one, but the thing is, God is merciful at the beginning, He's going to be merciful at the end. But he's also going to be just and righteous and holy all that time. Right? Does anybody disagree with me? Okay, so guess what? Zophar the Naamite in Job chapter 11 and chapter 20, he talks. And he tells Job this: Job's sin deserves even more suffering than he's experienced. Well, don't we often say, well, I hope they get their just desserts because they're not suffering enough. We say that. We got this couple that in California that had 13 kids, and they tortured their kids, and they chained them to a bed, and they didn't feed them. Oh, what comes up first? Kill them now. Look what they did to their 13 kids. Kill them now. And we would feel justified in saying that because of what we saw. And we would say, make them suffer even more. Of course, they did sin. They did do that. Job didn't, though. Again, none of them went back to chapter 1, verse 1. None of them went to chapter 1, verse 8. None of them went to chapter 2, verse 3. What's it say? That Job was righteous and holy and hated evil. So far you got 3 friends that say he's sinning. God didn't say that, did he? That's where Satan puts the rub in. Of course, he tells Job, get rid of your sins. So there's a gear in these 3 guys that's missing. You ever seen a machine and there's a gear that pops off and it kind of skips? I think that's what's happened to these guys. They're all concentrating on the perceived sin of Job. God said on this hand 3 times, Job is righteous. Job is holy. Job hates evil. Guess what they're doing? They're giving their what? Human opinion. What does God say? We already know what God said, that he was righteous, he was holy. And you know what? As we get saved and we ask Christ in our heart, and we do sin as Christians, what does God do? He looks at our sin that we have sinned before, during, and even after, because we will. The blood of Jesus covers it. What sin? What sin? What sin? That's what God's saying about Job. What sin? Was Job perfect? No, he was not perfect. If you're a human being living on this earth, we're not perfect. But he was holy and righteous, and he hated evil. Are you holy? Are you righteous? Do you hate evil enough to be considered like Job? That's the kind of life God wants us to live. Not the perfect life. The Bible says if you're going to be a pastor or an elder or a deacon or anything, to be found without what?
Blame.
Without blame. Can people blame you and me for certain things in our lives? I have to say it with me, probably so. With you, I don't know. There's some people that I consider a little more, less sinful, if that's the term you want to use.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah. No, we all sin.
Yeah.
Sins are not mistakes. Sins are sins. And that's where the world gets it all wrong. Oh, I misspoke, or I misread, or I misdid this. No. It's not a mistake. Really, none of what we do is a mistake. Because it comes through our minds first. We think about it. And we dwell on it. Not only do you it's one thing if you think about it and it leaves your mind. Okay? Then it's the other thing when you think about it and you start dwelling on that sin. Boy, I sure would like to have, go down to the bar down here at Home Run and just, drink 3 or 4 or 5 beers. It won't do me no harm. Then the next thing you do is you go down there and do it. And the next thing you do, got a habit going. And you got maybe an addiction going. Or something like that. But the Bible wants us, and God says, I know you can't be perfect. God says that. But you can be blameless. You can be blameless. And Job was blameless. So why is he suffering? If he's not sinning, why is he suffering? Well, Elihu, the Buzzite, I think of Ruth Buzzy, but I think bees too. A bee just humming around all over the place. What does he say? What's his advice? Elihu says God is using suffering to mold and train Job. Hey! Bing, 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 bing. That's closer. Because he does use suffering. You don't build muscle unless you go out and go to the gym or do this or do that. You don't. There's things in our life that we can only go through in our lives by suffering. Paul said, I count all joy to suffer for Jesus Christ. I count it all joy. Why? Because he had it high on the hog up to the point, to the road to Damascus. He never suffered up to that point. I mean, maybe he had trials or, maybe a difficulty here or there, but he never suffered. Have we really, truly suffered for the cause of Christ? I've had certain things happen to me in East Chicago and in certain places that I've lived or where I've pastored at. And yes, I have suffered a little bit. It's supposed to make me stronger, did it? I sure hope so. I'm going through things right now. Is it going to make me stronger? I hope so, and I pray so. Elihu kind of has part of the answer, though. These other three, they're clueless, because they all thought Job was sinning. But I guess God wasn't talking to them. He was only talking to Job. So those three just kind of assumed that Job was an evil, wicked sinner. Elihu said, God is using suffering to mold and to train Job. He does that for all of us. So that's kind of right. What's his advice? Keep silence, and I will teach you wisdom. This is Elihu saying this. Now, Elihu is the youngest of all these guys. So here we have, I venture to say, there's probably somebody that was in their 60s, somebody in their 50s, maybe their 80s, and here's Elihu, maybe in his 30s or 40s. Job's, I don't know how old he is. So you got all these stages of life being represented by these four guys. And here it comes along out of the mouth of a babe, basically speaking. Maybe he's just training you up to do something. Maybe he's molding you and making you. And that is more of an honest answer than any of the other three friends had. These were old, considered wise men, well experienced. The first thing that comes to their mind is, you're just a darn sinner. Well, if you're not sinning now, it's because you sinned in the past. And if you're not sinning at all, that's because you're just self-righteous. Well, yeah, I am righteous, but I'm not self-righteous. God sees me as the righteousness of God, of Christ. Doesn't he say that? Doesn't he say that as Christians? We get so caught up on that person's sin without looking at the rest of their life. Or we get caught up in a person because, I don't know, maybe they are living a better life than you and you're kind of jealous, and so that's your reason. Hey, you're just being self-righteous. I can't live that life, so how can you? Have you ever heard that? Well, instead of getting upset about me not living my life right, I'm going to get upset about you because you are living your life right. Have you ever heard that? And then we call them goody two-shoes or brown-nosers or self-righteous, or whatever the case may be. And they're really, truly trying their best to live the best life they possibly can for God, not for you. Not for me, but for God. So Elihu kind of gets it right. And what's Job's response to this? A big goose egg. 0. No response. Ooh, Job. Maybe this guy Elihu had it right. He didn't have it all right, but he had some of it right. His other 3 older friends, well experienced, maybe in the church or out in the world or in the synagogue or wherever the case. There was no synagogue then, but out there, you know, hey, does experience always trump? No, it doesn't. Just because I have an experience doesn't mean that I can pass my experience on to any of you. I have experiences that none of you have here. You have experiences that I don't have here. So we can't base our Christian life just on the experiences we have. We can share our experiences and use them as maybe as a building block or as something to say, hey, this is what happened to me and this is what God did for me. That's how you share the experience. Not like, hey, I did this and it worked great for you, so I want you to do it. Because really, when it's all said and done, experience does not trump God. When it's all said and done, human wisdom doesn't trump God's wisdom. Elihu kind of had it right. He's molding you and making you and shaping you into what he wants you to be. Was he all right? No, because as you see, he kind of gets a little self-righteous himself when you read the story. He says, hey, all you old guys, now I'm going to teach you wisdom. That was wrong. Hey, yeah, I saw how you old guys were, and we don't do it that way no more. This is the way we do it. That's wrong too. In Job 33:33, he says, stop and listen, I'll show you, I'll teach you wisdom, you old guy. That's not the way to do it. So he was wrong. Even though he had a wise saying, I've been told several times, boy, Jeff, that was really wise. That was really telling. And then I'll go out somewhere else the next time and I'll be a stupid fool. Kind of like Peter. And sometimes that happens to me. And my mouth is not big enough to hold my foot. And we all do that. There's not a one of us that hasn't done it. We've done it to our families. We've done it to our co-workers. We've done it to strangers. We do it every time we watch TV. We do it every time we read a book or anything like that. We just love to open our mouths and give our opinion. All these people here were opinionators. An opinionator is not what God wants. He doesn't want your opinion. What does he want? Tell me, somebody, what does God want if he doesn't want your opinion?
Obedience.
Obedience. What else does he want? Your love. Your love for him. Your love for him should be more important than any of your opinions or my opinions.
Humility.
Humility. God never looks good on pride.
No.
Pride cometh before a fall. Haughtiness, however you want to call it.
Haughty spirit leads to destruction.
God doesn't want to know how big and strong and manly that you are. God doesn't want you to know how many things you can do at one time and be a multitasker.
How you pray for him.
He hates your pride. He hates my pride. He hates your disobedience. He doesn't hate you. He doesn't really care about your opinion. Because then when you read in Job from chapter 38 to 41, He bombards Job with what? Questions, 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 questions. Sorry, I just got out of the way of the camera. So, but my voice still carries, so that's good. He bombards Job with questions. Job asks a few questions. And what does God do? He answers a question with what?
Another question.
How many questions?
A few hundred.
I did not count them. Okay? And I wasn't going to count them. All I know is that God was like, hey, boom, 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 boom. Were you there when the stars were there? Were you there when the firmament was made? Were you there with this? Are you there with the lion and the lamb and this and that and everything else? And Job's going, oh, I can't answer these questions. That's what God says. And I don't have to answer yours. What? I asked a couple, what he thought was a couple of questions, and he won't answer them? But he's asking me all these questions? Well, let's put it this way. Who's God? It's not Job. Is it? Job is God's creation. So when we talk about suffering, there's a couple good things about suffering. And, as a matter of fact, I actually want to go back to what God said in the chapters before there, before I go any further. So God, here's God's turn now. Guess what? He's always last, isn't he? He's always last instead of first. Well, Job talked to God first. He actually did. He didn't rely on his friends. He was talking to God. And that's a very good start. But God confronts him. How did God help? He confronted Job with the need to be content without knowing why he was suffering. God, why are you doing this to me? I don't have to tell you. No, that's not how God is. But he is saying, you'll find out. In due time, you'll find out. And it's for your good. It's always going to be a blessing afterwards. How did God talk to Job about his pain, explain his pain? He did not even explain the reason for the pain. Why am I hurting so bad? Yeah, remember, back then there was no age of doctors and lawyers and psychologists and all these people that can try to explain your pain and your hurt and your problems away. There's only one really true way to getting answers. It was God. But you go to God and God says, I ain't going to answer. He's sovereign, so he can do that. I mean, there's no other God before or after him. He's God. He can say and do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, how he wants to do it, to whomever he wants to do it to. What was the advice given to Job? Do you still want to argue with me? God says in Job chapter 40, verse 2. So yeah, keep on going, Job. Are you going to win? That's the real question is. Are you going to win, Job, against me? We never win against God. Why do you get in a car wreck? Why do you have cancer? Why is my finances down the tube? Why is I have to move? Why is I have to lose a loved one? We can ask all kinds of questions. Why? But hindsight is usually 20/20. God does answer the questions. Did you know that? He does. He just doesn't ask it. He doesn't answer it right away. You usually find out hindsight. This is why you did this, God? This is why this is great. Thank you, Lord. I've had that happen to me several times. When I'm really in tune with God, and I'm going, some things have been 15, 20, 10 years ago. And God says, now you see. And a big smile comes on my face, and a big light bulb blows up in my head. Dingy, 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 dingy. The bell rings. Everything is fresh and new because now I know why God did this. He wants you to go through the suffering with no questions asked. He's not mad that you ask questions. He really isn't. It's not about him being mad. It's just say, hey, it's not time to reveal it just yet. So what did Job say? I was talking about things I knew nothing about. Chapter 42, verses 3 through 5. Now, you got to realize, Job's probably an old man. And after this, he lived another 140 years. And he had 7 more sons and 3 more daughters, but the same wife. He had double the cattle, double the sheep, double the property, because God said so. Why? Because Job said, I know nothing. I hear nothing, I see nothing, for therefore I am nothing without God. That's the key. I say that all the time. I know nothing, I hear nothing, I see nothing, because I am nothing. I am just the dust of the earth. But with God, I'm exactly what He wants me to be. If I'm obeying Him and I'm trusting in Him. Job says, I was talking about things that I never knew. Let's look at chapter 42, because that's kind of where I want to end at. 3 through 5. Well, I'm going to go at verse 1. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withheld from you. Okay, he's getting that right, ain't he? Who is he that hides counsel without knowledge? God. Therefore have I uttered that I understood not, things too wonderful for me that I knew not. Hear, I beseech you, and I will speak. I will demand of you, and declare you unto me. I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eyes see you. Wherefore I abhor myself. Where is the concept of having self-esteem at in the Bible?
It's not there.
It's not. Well, you just hurt my feelings. And I'm a sensitive person. I know. I get sensitive. I admit it. Well, and people say, well, I'm sorry you have low self-esteem. And the more you read the Bible doesn't talk about having self-esteem, does it? Because what happens when you have self-esteem? You're thinking about yourself.
You get prideful.
You're not thinking about God, and you're not thinking about others. Because my self-esteem is wounded. My pride. My ego. Yeah, know all those self-help books? What do they concentrate on? Self. Me. Dr. Phil, Oprah Winfrey, Dr. Oz, Jerry Springer, Montel Williams, Wendy whatever her name is, Ellen DeGeneres. What are all these people about? They say they want to help others. But really it's about themselves. Because they want to be high and lifted up. They want to be known as the human savior. Here I beseech you, and I will speak. I will demand of you and declare you unto me. I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees. Wherefore I hate myself and repent in dust and ashes. Now, should we continue to hate ourselves? No. Let's go on. And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is kindled against you and against the 2 friends. He didn't talk about Elihu, did he? He talked about the other 2 friends. So guess what? The young guy had it right. Because he didn't say anything about Elihu. Guess what? Sometimes it pays to listen to young'uns.
Yeah.
Sometimes it pays. Because you know why? They're not jaded in the world like the older people are. Now I know older people who are very sensitive to the Lord, and they're very respectful even to probably their worst enemy. But his wrath was kindled in them. He told them to go do an offering, do a sacrifice. They did that. Now, verse 10 says, and the Lord turned the captivity of Job. Job, guess what? A 180. A 180. He went from suffering in the ashes and the burn heap. When he prayed for his friends, what was Job's big thing? He was about himself there for a little bit. But what did he do? God said pray for his friends. What did Job do?
Prayed for his friends.
Pray. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do for your family? Are you supposed to talk about them? Are you supposed to argue with them all the time? Are you supposed to say, hey, judge them all the time? We're not. We do it because it's easier to do than to pray for them. But when you're praying for them, guess what? It's not as easy to do all those other things.
Hard to be angry at someone you're praying for.
Right.
Definitely.
So if you want to stop being angry, pray for that person. You want to stop being bitter and prideful and hateful? Pray for the person you don't like. Pray for the things that they have done. I'm almost done here. And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed to his friends. Also the Lord gave Job twice as much as before. Wow. Guess what? Job didn't pray to get twice as much, did he? Job didn't pray to get what he lost, even. You want to be blessed? Spend more time in prayer. I mean, that's what the Bible says, right? Pray for your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Pray for your enemies. Pray for your family. Now, I know it's hard. Believe me, I know it's hard. But it's not impossible. That's something we have to do. Then came there unto him all his brothers, all of his sisters. Where were they when he was suffering? They weren't there, were they? And all they that had been of his acquaintances before. Notice the word acquaintances. An acquaintance is not a friend usually. Acquaintance is somebody, hey, I know you. I see you at work or something like that. But now that Job's got more than what he had before, guess what happens? It's like winning the lottery. They come out of the woodwork, don't they? And did eat bread with him in his house, and they bemoaned him. Oh, I feel sorry. Where were they when Job was really suffering? Where were they when he was really suffering? I have to give credit to his 3 or 4 friends. They were there.
Yeah, a lot of times you learn who really cares about you when you're going for a rough time.
And I believe these 4 friends really cared about him. I mean, it's often been said, if you have one friend for life, you're blessed. If you have more than that, I mean, then that's a great, great, great thing. And they bemoaned him and comforted him over all the evil that the Lord had brought to him. Every man also gave, guess what they did? Now, this is kind of unique too. Every man also gave him a piece of money, everyone an earring of gold. So the Lord blessed the latter, because you know what? They saw Job go through the fire. They saw Job go through the flood. They saw Job go through the ash heap. They saw Job go through his health crisis, his financial crisis, his family crisis. And look how he handled it. Look how he handled it. I think of Mother Teresa. Yes, I know she's Catholic, but she was from the Sisters of the Poor, and her enemies could not do nothing but say nice things about her.
Yeah.
Will your enemies be able to say nice things about you when you're gone? Or when I'm gone? Will they be so nice to bring forth blessings to you because of how you went through trials and tribulations? And it tells about all. He had his 7 sons and his 3 daughters. He called the name of the first Jemima, and second Kezia, the name of the other Karen and Hapuk. And in all the land were no women found so fair as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them inheritance. Usually you only gave the sons inheritance. But daughters also got an inheritance. After this lived Job 140 years. He saw his sons' sons, and his sons' sons' sons to the fourth generation. So Job died being old and full of days. How did you handle suffering? I'll be honest with you. At first, I don't handle suffering very easy. I'm a wimp. At first. But then I get my crawl going. And I get somebody that's encouraging. And they encourage me. And then I start reading God's Word. And then I start praying. And that's usually how it works with me. I have to have somebody to encourage me. Are you an encourager? I have to have God's Word, and I turn to God's Word in private when nobody's around, and I'm reading God's Word, and I'm praying whatever the Lord wants. But I want to be like Job one of these days, and then when I do suffer, maybe even more than what I'm doing now, I want to be known as, hey, that man's a man of God. Look what he's going through. Look what he's going through. Look how he's handling it. Not so much what he's going through, but how. It's not what, it's how. How are we handling the suffering in our lives? Lord, I just thank you and I praise you, Lord, so much. I thank you for this example of Job, dear Father. I thank you, Lord, for your word, every bit of it. It's 100% true, whether we think so or not. Lord, I just give you praise and glory that, Lord, that we can count it all joy like Paul did to suffer just a little bit for you. Lord, our reward isn't here on this earth usually, but it's beyond this world. So let us look forward to the things that are greater than anything in this world. In Jesus' name, amen.